Welcome to Transplant Garden. Today we're going to talk about how to take and propagate Damiana cuttings. This is a really cool plant and it's really rare, so it's very handy to be able to know how to propagate it. So then you can have some clones of it and hopefully just kind of expand your collection. Thanks for tuning in. This is a good example of a cutting. It's about maybe 2.5 inches long. Once we have our cutting, what we want to do is we want to cut off a lot of the lower leaves. We do this because it's going to get buried anyways, and I cut them so I don't damage the bark. That could help the cuttings last longer, as if the bark is intact. So I take the leaves that I've cut off and I dump them in my tincture so that I'm not wasting any of the leaves of my Damiana plant. These are rare, so you gotta take care of them. Try to cut the leaves close to the trunk so that you're taking as much of the leaf as possible. When you're trying to do the pull test to see if any roots have been established, if your leaves are really big, it's going to be hard to pull out of the sand, so it'll be hard to tell if you have any roots forming. Alright, so this is a good example for how many leaves you want to leave. So I'm cutting off the bottom few, leaving quite a few nodes. I took maybe half to 2/3 of the total leaves from this cutting. You want to do that because when you're propagating your cutting, you're going to be losing a lot of water from the leaves here. The plants naturally respirate and lose water. So part of the deal with propagation is conserving water and letting the plant have enough water to put those roots out. You don't want it to run out of water and dry out before it's able to put out roots. So that's why we take off leaves that wouldn't always be buried. If you take a look at this cutting, it has a woody stem. I've had luck with both woody stems and the soft green cuttings, like this one you can see. There we go. I've had luck with both. Quick note, if your plant has any flower buds that are starting, it's best to cut those off. Flowers require a lot of energy, and we don't have enough energy in this cutting to both put out flowers and to put out roots. So since you're going for a whole new plant, it's better to cut off the flower and hopefully give your cutting a better chance to make some roots. Alright, like I said, I'm going to take my leaves, put in my tincture bottle. So all season I've been cutting leaves off and propagating and adding to this tincture bottle. This is just high proof alcohol that I put the leaves in to steep in. I have another video on that, but basically you want to leave the leaves in for at least 30 days after you put them in. Make sure that the leaves are covered with alcohol. This is high proof grain alcohol. I believe it's the Everclear 171 proof, I believe. There we go. Alright, once we have all the cuttings trimmed, what we want to do is we want to take our cutting, dip it in rutting powder. I'm using Take Rut rutting hormone. I don't really have a opinion on any sort of rutting hormone. I just do it because it's worked for me in the past. So how you do that, how you apply your rutting hormone, is you just dab the end, kind of give it a little flick to take the excess off. There you can see there's a thin coating. It's maybe a little bit less than I would like, so let's just put a little bit more on there. Yeah, that's a good amount. A little frosted. So we're going to put that on our plate there. Alright, and then I like to just let them sit for a few minutes. Hopefully maybe absorb some of that rutting hormone. I don't know that this is strictly a necessary step, but it's just something I like to do. Alright, so now comes the exciting part. We're going to put this in our humidity tray. So I have just pure play sand. It's a relatively coarse play sand. These ones are some of my canna seeds that I put in there a few days ago. Over here you can see some of my older Damiana sprouts, or I'm sorry, cuttings. Hopefully they'll have some roots soon. Alright, so an important thing to do is to make a little impression about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep where you're going to be planting your cuttings. So I have my cutting here, I put it in there, and I kind of agitate it so that the sand seals around the cutting. So you want to do that versus just pushing your cutting into the sand to keep all that rutting hormone powder on there. Now if you're not using rutting hormone, you don't have to do that, but that's something I'm going to be doing because I'm using it. Otherwise you'll just be pushing it off of your cutting. Sometimes you sort of have to push it through the sand if your sand is too dry. Alright, so I can take 1, 2, 3, 4 more cuttings if I would like to. Alright, now that they're in our humidity chamber, what we're going to do is we're going to put them under some grow lights. This chamber is a nice one. I like it. It's from Viva Sun. I believe it has 48 slots. And it comes with a top with vents, and they also have some lights that are built in. The lights in particular They're not super strong, but they're good enough for propagation and seedling phases. The vents are nice because they allow you to regulate the humidity. I'm going to be keeping the humidity vents closed for the first week and a half, 2 weeks or so. If it looks like it's getting pretty jungly in there, I'm going to open those up. Once I think that I might have some roots starting to go, I'm going to open up those vents and keep them open for the rest of the time. Otherwise, you're just trying to kind of give these seedlings cuttings, a chance to get some roots. So you want it to have cycles of wetness. So you want to give it some water, let it dry out, give it some water, let it dry out. But you don't want those dry periods to be too long. Because remember, for a while they won't have any ability to replenish their water levels. So you don't want it to be too dry for too long, but you also don't want it to be too wet for too long. So it's kind of a balance. If you start to see a lot of fogging on your humidity chamber, you definitely want to let it dry out a little bit, but you don't want it to be bone dry. Here they are in the humidity dome setup. You can see the lights and the vents there. On my website I have a kind of an explanation of this thing. If you're interested, I'm not sponsored or anything, I just like it. So I'm going to wait for maybe a day before I give them any water. I want them to get a little bit used to where they are right now. Oh, there comes the puppy. And hopefully, once you give them some water, they'll start to, oh, there she goes. They'll start to put out roots in about 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, and there's the timer, just shut off the lights. Thanks for watching, I hope you learned something.